Biden seeks significant de-escalation. Netanyahu has repeatedly held what he has described as support from the United States, Israel's main ally, for a right to self-defense in battling attacks from Gaza. Announcement over the weekend that we were going to be sending more money for arms to Israel. What else is Netanyahu supposed to think? But Biden put the Israeli leader on notice in a telephone call that it was time to lower the intensity of the conflict. Biden is starting to feel pressure here at home. Over the weekend, his posture was quite different. Washington and several Middle East capitals have sought an end to the violence through diplomacy. The 193-member United Nations General Assembly was due to meet on the conflict on Thursday. Participation of several foreign ministers, but was not expected to take action. The U.S. mission said it would not support a French push for a resolution in the 15-member UN Security Council, saying it believes such actions would undermine efforts to de-escalate. Hamas began firing rockets on May 10th. Rockets followed attacks by Israeli police and clashes with worshippers at the Al-Aqsa Mosque. I think I am saying that right. I heard somebody say it the other day. Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem. Court case by Israeli settlers to evict. I do not like the word evict. Israel does not have authority in that area under international law, so they cannot evict Palestinians. What they're doing is ethnic cleansing. But even Reuters describes it as evict Palestinians from a neighborhood in Israeli annexed East Jerusalem. The hostilities are the most serious between Hamas and Israel in years, and in a departure from previous Gaza conflicts, have helped fuel street violence in Israeli cities. Conflict has also spilled over to the Israel-Lebanon frontier and stoked violence in the occupied West Bank. 4 rockets were launched towards Israel from Lebanon on Wednesday, the third such incident since the current Gaza conflict began. There was no claim responsibility. Now, if we look to a far more, Reuters is a more middle of the road news outlet. If we look towards a right-wing news outlet like the New York Post, we can see some IDF propaganda here. Israeli cockpit video shows mission being scrubbed after children were seen. Now remember, what, 57, 58 children? What was the total? It was 50-something. I just read it a little bit ago. Had been killed during this current conflict. Well, what does the New York Post put out? And I'm sure this was staged. They took this video purposely. Then after the video stopped, they're like, all right, let's go kill those kids now. I don't believe for a second they take that kind of caution, given the fact that 57, 58 children have died. Probably by the time I'm saying this, we were reading a story from a few hours ago. It's probably 60 by now, at least. So I mentioned the arms sale announced over the weekend quietly. A group of lawmakers is cobbling together an effort to block a sale of precision-guided weapons to Israel as President Joe Biden... Smokey. As President Joe Biden ratchets up the pressure on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to bring a halt to the increasingly deadly conflict in Gaza. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is leading the effort along with Representatives Rashida Tlaib, Mark Pocan, Ilhan Omar, and others, according to a draft resolution obtained by Politico. I do not need to point out that those are all Democrats. It came as a partisan jostling on Capitol Hill over U.S.-Israeli relations. U.S.-Israel relations escalated significantly from predictably sharp rhetoric to lawmakers accusing each other of supporting terrorists, as both parties asserted their support for Israel's right to self-defense. I mean, getting called a terrorist by right-wingers is nothing new. The actual terrorists who committed an insurrection that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. The resolution of disapproval as drafted aims to prohibit the proposed $735 million sale of Boeing-built arms guidance kit to Israel. We already send them almost $4 billion a year. What's another $750 million, right? The Joint Direct Attack Munitions Kit, as it's known, converts unguided or dumb bombs into precision guiding munitions. The 11th hour Democratic effort, which is doomed to fail, comes one day after a group of senior House Democrats on Tuesday backed off an emerging push to delay the sale amid intensifying violence in the region. Lawmakers want, because that's a weird position for the Biden administration to take, saying that they want to put an end to the escalation and the tensions, yet giving Israelis almost $1 billion in weapons. Lawmakers wanted to use the impending arms transfer as leverage to push the Israelis to drop their resistance to a ceasefire with its longtime nemesis, the Palestinian militant group Hamas. Their push set the stage for an intense spat on the other side of the Capitol ladder Wednesday, when Senators Rick Scott and Bernie Sanders offered competing resolutions about the U.S. position on the current crisis. Matter of fact, let's hear from Bernie Sanders. Fuck Rick Scott.
Congress must understand that in more than a decade of his right-wing...
And I think as one of the senior most Jewish members of our government, I think Bernie Sanders holds a little bit more oomph with his declarations.
Wing rule in Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu has cultivated an increasingly intolerant and authoritarian type of racist nationalism. In his frantic effort to stay in power and avoid prosecution for corruption, Netanyahu has legitimized extremist forces such as the Jewish Power Party by bringing them into the government. Moreover, we should understand that these dangerous trends are not unique to Israel. What is going on in Israel, in my view, is a political tragedy, but it is part of a trend that is going on around the world, including here
in this country,
where we are seeing the rise of authoritarian nationalist movements. These movements exploit ethnic and racial hatreds in order to build power for a corrupt few rather than prosperity, justice, and peace for the many.
Thank you, Bernie.
For the last 4 years, these movements have had a friend in the Trump White House. And on January 6th, those forces attacked this very chamber. Madam President, it is no accident that the only European Union country that did not join the nearly unanimous statement yesterday calling for a ceasefire was Hungary. Hungary did not join the rest of the European Union, and Hungary, of course, is led by the ethno-nationalist authoritarian Viktor Orban, a strong ally of both Netanyahu and Donald Trump. Now, some may choose to be on
all over the world. You're right.
but that is not the side I choose to be on. We must be on the
you
side
bring up Myanmar, and Myanmar should have a very progressive government given their leader. And she has been a huge disappointment to a progressive movement. It really is wild how power corrupts people.
To want to build a society based on real security and political equality, based upon the principles of economic justice, racial justice, political justice, social justice, and environmental justice. I believe we must stand in solidarity with those Palestinians and Israelis working to build a future of equality and peaceful coexistence, and not with the intolerant
He's right. There's plenty of Israelis
who wish
and Jewish people
to destroy
that agree with the Palestinians.
In this moment of crisis, the United States should be urging an immediate ceasefire. My colleagues, I strongly believe that the United States has a major role to play in helping the world build a more peaceful and prosperous future, one in which human rights are upheld and the life of every human being is valued. We should
I hope,
be leading
Bernie.
the world in
I hope.
It's
probably not going to happen in mine or your lifetime.
We should be leading the world in making sure that every person on earth, no matter what country he or she lives in, receives a vaccine to protect them from the COVID-19 virus. And yes, we should lead the world in attempting to bring the Israeli people and the Palestinian people together. If the United States is going to be a credible voice on human rights on the global stage, we must recognize that Palestinian rights matter, Palestinian lives matter. Madam President, I object to the Scott resolution.
Boom! Tones, I kind of object to you calling him neti pot. I think that's an insult to neti pots. Neti pots are useful.